Well, Lucas, I'm glad you could join for this conversation. I'm excited to glean from your learning. I always feel like as I get to do these interviews, it feels like free consulting that I get to experience. But also it's great. It's blessing to our community. So we're going to be talking about B2B sales for SaaS startups and SaaS companies. And so yeah, Lucas, will you introduce yourself? Kind of tell us a little bit about your experience in this space.
Yeah, thank you, David. So yeah, my name is Lucas Muniz, and I currently have my own business. It's called Sales Network LLC, and the business is a consulting for SaaS companies who want to scale their sales. And doesn't matter, no matter what growth stage the startup is at. We basically find out exactly where you are, what the best next steps are going to be, and even if it relates to, let's say, if you need some help that's not specifically for sales, we partner up with whoever is needed the most. Let's say a marketing agency, if that's the case, or just guide you to the next step if we can help. But usually, there's always something sales related that needs to get done, before the company reaches that next stage. So yeah, I've been working in sales for the last 20 plus years. I used to work even, when I was a teenager with my dad, and worked in different industries, a myriad different industries. Worked in tech a long time ago. The times of, not sure if anyone is here familiar with Boral and Cool Gear. That's when I was introduced to tech sales, and then I worked in different industries and came back. So I chose software as a service, B2B, just because I noticed that a huge amount of, let's say, majority of cases, the processes can be replicated. And even with all the personalization, even all with the nuances of each case, at least, let's say, the rules that I talk with, they usually apply pretty well across, across all the different SaaS products. So yeah, I'm here matching challenges with tech solutions.
No, I love that, Lucas. And I appreciate that. Yeah, like you calling out even that, yeah, well, each of our businesses we have like nuances and unique things about them, but those same principles, just like in our framework, the same principles of growth apply at different stages. Same thing you're saying. It's like, hey, you may be offering a different product or a different promise, but the process, the principles of sales, and especially these B2B SaaS sales, they apply broadly. And so you're helping people see through all of the chaos and clutter and go, hey, these are the things that you need to double down on. This is how we're going to help you get there. And that clarity is so valuable. So I'm excited. Let's just kind of dive in to talk through some of these stages here. The next stage is what we call adoption. And so we're getting into market adoption. And the stage after that is sustainability. So I'll kind of explain them together because adoption is a transitional state to sustainability. And so what we do in adoption is, because we have that ready to sell offer, we go, okay, well, what do we need to sell to have your ideal month? Like, what's that annual revenue that if you had, you'd be like, all right, cool, we are in a good spot. That's where we want to get to. Well, okay, let's break it down to what does that annual revenue look like in a month? And then go, okay, that's our economic milestone. That's what we're aiming for, is to have one ideal month. Like, let's get to that first ideal month. Then sustainability is go, hey, let's make every month our ideal month. Let's make this repeatable and optimize it. But adoption is really, you're getting that market adoption as you're kind of growing from, hey, I have a validated offer that I'm confident in, to I have consistent money coming in the bank in this ideal month. And so we're kind of working up that ladder to create awareness, to create consideration, to help people decide and purchase. And so, like, we're moving them down that user journey in there. But again, yeah, so this is where, when a lot of people think about, like, oh, I'm doing sales, this is probably, although, like, as we've been discussing, there's sales activities that happen earlier, but I think a lot of times this is kind of the stage that people think about, like, oh, I need to go put my sales hat on now and go hit the streets or hit LinkedIn and start selling this thing. So when someone has that offer but they're trying to get to that economic milestone of revenue, what are some of the questions they should be asking? What are maybe some of the resources they should be aware of, or pitfalls they should try to avoid in that stage from a sales standpoint with these B2B SaaS products?
Awesome. Yeah. At this point, it's definitely about processes now because you know your value. You already created champions. You already understood also the value for the decision makers that you've been discovering, right? And you are refining your message. Okay, so now you have a basic message already. Of course, you're going to keep evolving the message um, forever, nonstop. But at this point, you were safe to say like, hey, I can provide this value to those titles. So basically, you already build, let's say, personas, right? Because you have your ideal customer profile, and there are those personas which are basically you imagine the ones that not only take the biggest value from your product, but the ones that you've got to convince the most, the ones who are the key decision makers or key stakeholders in that process. So those personas, let's say this way, um, then you are creating early advocates, right? So those people, once that they start using your product and getting the good results from it, of course, when it's technology, people are going to talk to each other about, hey, I'm using something cool here. You should try it out. The power of referrals. So that's why it's so important, the connection with those early advocates throughout the existential and the discovery phase. So you create champions not only inside their own companies, but for the whole community. But then now that you have, validated the value proposition, the adoption phase, I think it's when you finally have to really focus on processes because, okay, am I prepared to sell, to go out there, to conquer the market? So basically, you have already an understanding of how the decision making works, and you start having an idea of how the sales cycle will be, even though sometimes it can still be a blurry line because companies they have different budgeting throughout the year. Sometimes the sales cycles are longer than expected, but at least you kind of know the steps already. Oh, okay, so seems like the best way of approaching my target is to focus on those personas with the right messaging for them. But then I know that after getting their attention, they're going to be champions and talk to their bosses, or maybe someone from another department that also benefits from your product. But at this stage, the adoption stage, you already have a good idea of, okay, those are the people that I would probably need to talk with every single time that I reach to the corporate world. You already have an idea of how the sales cycle works, and you need to build a pipeline. So how do we build a pipeline? How do we create a repeatable sales process so we can accelerate growth? And that's when you got to be aware of two different sales efforts. Let's say this way: the inbound effort and the outbound effort. So the inbound effort, it's way more to deal with marketing at the beginning than with sales, but of course involves sales right after, because your messaging got to be catchy, clear. You gotta have already done a good job on the marketing side. So this way, when people come to you, um, they are they're going to find you. If people are looking for the right wording, if you're doing your job with the whole Google or all the ads or whatever your marketing says that is going to be best for you, you got to be prepared to receive that traffic. Not only receive that traffic, or what you're going to do with it. So you got a great messaging, you attracted clicks, you attracted traffic, and people are falling onto your demo requests or something like this. So people are coming to the website. Now it's everything process driven now. Like, who is going to talk with those people? Like, what do I need to do to lock them in, to not just, you know, give them a pricing and they don't want to talk with me after I give them the price? What's going to be? Because building value, it's it's a thing of steps, even though the steps can be different for each product, you know, as we discussed here, who's the champion, who's the decision maker, but you definitely got to build value. And in sales, to build value, you got to always be, let's say, buying time. It's like this: someone got the right messaging through an ad, or and they came to your website and they got curious about it because you had the right messaging about the value proposition for that person, for that persona, for that industry. Okay, so how can I keep this person interested um, after my first call? What is my first call going to be? It's going to be a demo. It's going to be a straight up demo, or I'm just going to make the demo available online so I don't talk to them. I'm just going to have they do the self-serving thing. So I would say B2B SaaS, it's usually better for you to have a discovery call. So the first, let's say, step on the inbound process, it would be probably be a call where you have the chance of asking some of the same questions you ask for those early adopters. You are trying to make this person a champion. Sometimes the person who comes to talk with you, they are already the decision makers, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're the users. They're looking for a SaaS product like that. And they, looked for those words, got to the website, got to a discovery call with you. So if they're not the decision makers, the discovery call is even more important. But discovery call is always important in B2B SaaS because you got to first ask them all those questions that you ask to all the people, but now you are more confident of what value you can provide in general. Now you got to figure out specifics that you can provide to them. So, okay, what are your challenges? What you came here for? And you got to give them, it's basically asking questions so they give you bullets for you to shoot your shot. And they start giving you bullets like, oh yeah, I came here because I saw that you guys do this. I'm interested in that feature because they don't have it. Like, okay, why are you interested in that feature? So you are making them sell to themselves with those questions. Oh, because of this and this and this, and that takes too much time. Oh, okay, takes too much time. And cool. What would you do with extra time? How does it affect you? So you're basically gathering more, let's say, messaging in your favor because those answers they're giving to you right now, they're going to be important for you to repeat them back to them later on. Remind them why they went to your website because sometimes they forget. They think that they went to your website only because of that feature. No, they didn't go because of that feature. They went to your website because they felt bothered by something for a while and they finally saw something that could solve for them and they wouldn't be bothered about that anymore. So got to get those key bullets right there. And then after you gather, let's say, everything that's important when it comes to what value you would provide to them, asking those open-ended questions so they can give you more and more details of how your tool would make their lives better. Then you give a little glimpse of, I would say, in most cases, it's not worth it doing the demo on the first call. But at least if you show a little something, basically the concept without showing the whole demo, the full demo is better. It's basically, hey, this is how it works. This not showing specific features, but talking in general about capabilities and why you created them, and showing them basically what they can expect from a full demo. And of course, if they feel particularly interested in a specific module that you talk about, a specific concept that you described, of course, you're not going to waste the opportunity to ask why. So, oh, yes, I really like this. Oh, you really like this. Why? you know. So basically, the whole goal of the discovery call is to do a killer demo that you know exactly what value you're going to provide, not only the general ones, the ones that you already know, but value to them, to that specific company, to that specific person you're talking about. So this way you can personalize your demo to deliver the most value. So I would say, this is, by the way, I want to say, David, that this process can be equal from the inbound perspective that we are talking about and the outbound that I'm going to describe later. I just wanted to focus first, okay, like how does the sales cycle is going to look like? And I stopped here for a little bit because I noticed that with all the clients I had, that a lot of people don't know how to build value for the product, and they miss out. Like a lot of deals, they just fall through the cracks because they don't build momentum. They just, throw the demo in the website, like click and watch it, or they just go through the demo right away. So that's why I'm spending a little more time here, if you know what I mean.
Well, and something I'm hearing in there, Lucas, and then I do want you to talk a little bit about the outbound process too. But it is like, because it's really tempting, like you said, let's just stick it on the website and let's put a big buy button underneath that. And that's what everyone's going to do is they're going to watch the demo and buy it. And sure, that's great. We don't want to make it hard to purchase necessarily, but especially in this B2B space versus like a B2C where it's like, hey, I'm the decision maker, I'm the user. I like it. I'm buying it.
Boom.
There's a lot more selling that goes on, and there's a lot more nuance to the application of it. And so it really does, though, I would imagine as the entrepreneur, what you're describing feels a little slower, but it's kind of that like, hey, we're going to go, if we want to go far, we got to kind of start out slow and go together with our clients, and kind of, and like you're saying, where that discovery call, you're really taking in and going, okay, let me understand the problem. And then, yeah, you're basically preparing for that demo where you're just repeating back to them the like, hey, this is what you said you're struggling with. And this is what you said you wanted to achieve. And this is how our product does this. And this will be the outcome. And they're like, oh, how did you know? And it's like, well, you told me in the discovery call. But
exactly. Yes.
So you're preparing for that. And again, if it's like, okay, yeah, maybe it takes a little longer, but I imagine the close rate is enormously higher when you are able to tailor that demo to those clients. And especially, even though it can feel slower, I mean, we all know, in that adoption stage where you're starting at like not much and trying to get to the ideal month, one sale, two sale, like those sales, even though it's like it can feel slow at that moment where you're like, man, I just want to get someone buying. Hey, once you start stacking those, you feel that momentum and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I took the time. And I have this core of people as I continue to sell on my way to my economic milestone here that really pivots me to the next stage. So like I like how you're calling out the just yeah, the as you're talking about creating a repeatable process, but really dialing in on this discovery call aspect of it and why that's important. Because I think a lot of not just B2B SaaS products, but a lot of industries use discovery calls, but they're not always used well. And so I think that's where when you're coming in and you're taking that consultative approach of like, again, kind of like we talked about before, like, hey, how is this going to help you? What are you trying to achieve? Like, where are you stuck? What have you tried so far? Because then what they're kind of choosing against in a sense of what they're already doing. And so I think as you're calling that out, that's really helpful. I liked the idea of the kind of the macro demo teaser where you're kind of walking through like, this is how our product makes your life better, not how you use it. That seems like that's kind of what you were saying. It's like, okay, let's talk at a high level, like how does our product make your life and your business better? And then next time I'll show you like what you do to make that happen. But as long as we're really all super clear and bought in on this, well, then this is just the how, but you're really getting the why clear first in case that was missed somewhere along the journey up to that point.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna also accelerate a little bit because
Yeah.
I know that we have four more stages after.
No, it's okay.
But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Give us
did
the
want to,
outbound
yeah.
too in there. So yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah,
I
because
want
this
that one.
one, yeah, I focused on this one a little bit because I noticed a lot of companies they miss on that. It's as you said, it's not like B2C. B2C, the decision maker is the person who is going there usually, and it's all about the value they perceive, the perceived value. So sometimes when it's B2B, when someone is accessing your website, they're not the decision makers, and the perceived value is different from the decision makers. So you got to make sure that you got to do the killer demo. So then you do a killer demo, right? I would say usually, the full demo, depending on the complexity of the product, of course. If like a product way less complex, it could be half an hour. A more complex product could be, an hour demo. Just make sure that you are not, that's not boring for them, which means if you did your job really well with the discovery call, you know what they want to see the most and what features and capabilities is not much of, you can just run through, just making sure that they know it exists, but you focus on what's going to provide the most value for them. And of course, you do a killer demo and always trying to close, but not close like buy it. Like, as I said before, you're buying more time to talk with them. So, okay, what are the next steps after a demo? Do you need to talk with another key stakeholder? Who is, if they want to answer that question, because you're trying to engage all the key stakeholders in the process. Do can I do you think they would be interested in seeing another demo? No problem. Like I do another demo for that person. If your boss want to come and see another demo, whatever it is, you want to talk with all key stakeholders in
And you're
that
even maybe
decision.
asking that on the call. You're like, hey, is there anyone not in this call that
Exactly.
needs to like see what y'all are seeing in order for us to move forward and solve these problems for you? Like you're kind of asking a question like that to really even kind of tease out because they might go, no, hey, we're here. I'm the guy, or whatever.
Boom.
Then
Yep.
you're like, oh, cool. That might pivot you a little bit, but yeah, like I imagine it doesn't. Is there a danger in just asking that outright? Like, hey, is
No,
anyone else, or
usually,
is that kind of what you would recommend for this type of
usually
interaction?
that question comes even on discovery call. Like, hey,
Right. Yeah.
so if we're trying to make a killer demo, it's not. Some people think of sales more on like, oh, you're trying to convince them, blah blah blah, and it's almost like it's something not honest, and it's exactly the opposite. You are literally asking all the open-ended questions, and you are being extremely clear on what you were trying to do. Like, is there someone else that would be important for them to see this demo? Because I want to make sure that our messaging, that they get value out of this as well, that we don't forget anything. That so yeah, it's just being extremely transparent actually. And then running through a little quicker, right? Because I know there are like four other stages, but I wanted to keep, at least those steps, let's say on the sales cycle, pretty clear here. Which it will be different from company to company, especially from more complex products to less complex products. So the amount of steps might be different for each company, right? But of course, after the demo, there is always a phase of, solution designing, or you go straight to negotiation. So basically, if there are any personalizations, any integrations, anything that you have to build for that specific company, if you're trying to solve their specific problems that you haven't solved for anyone before, then you can go to the solution designing process of things, where you kind of, establish the next steps specifically for you and them. Oh, okay. So I see that you need this integration. We don't have out of the box, but we are willing to do it. So let's talk about it. What's going to be necessary? Gathering all that. So making a few words, the solution designing step, if necessary, is just for you to deliver even more value, personalized to them, if that's the case. If you're willing to, if you can, if it makes sense. So the solution designing is for you to do, solve their problem specifically. And then, of course, it goes to negotiation. All through all those steps, you're always following up with them. And it's really interesting at the end of every single call, you you just do a little resume and go back to, okay, well, so what are the next steps here? Can I follow up with you on that day in 2 weeks from now or in 1 week from now? So this way you're not lost through your sales cycle. Like if after the demo, they need to talk to their boss, you need to talk to the boss. Why? You ask them that. Oh, because he might want to see another demo, or then no, because he might just want to negotiate because he trusts me, or no, because I need to talk with all the departments. You gotta know your next steps. Your next step's going to be very well defined, not only for you, but for him, for the league, for them. And this way, they're they're more open to receiving your follow-up. They're going to be more welcoming. Why? Because they know why you're calling. They know why you are sending that email. So yes, and then solution designing, negotiation, and then it goes to all the bureaucracy of contracts and all that. I'm not going to get into that because that can be very different from company to company. But basically, I just wanted to show the main stages of the sales cycle, let's say this way, that usually, for SaaS B2B, you pass through them in general, not equal for every company, as I said, like more complex, less complex. And on the stage of adoption, just coming back to the stages, and now we're going to go a little faster, is it's all about building that pipeline. Now you actually start doing the sales, you build a sales team, or you hire a company to do that for you. But anyway, it's about lead generation, and then it comes outbound sales too. So now you already have a good idea of why people are coming to you. When someone comes to your website, they already said why they're coming to you. Start getting that data because it's very valuable. Like, okay, why they come to, like, who is coming to you, from what industry, what they search for, what are the challenges. So once that you start seeing a pattern, that might even change a little bit. That's why I told you that your messaging is always evolving, right? Because on the discovery stage, you did a value proposition, you made, and you thought that maybe those were the personas, the titles, the key stakeholders that would come to you the most. But then when people actually start coming to the website, you see like, oh, I haven't thought of that title, and those people are really getting interested in the software. So it's not only about adapting the messaging, it's making new messaging and adding those messages to the website as well and to your outbound effort. So then with that sales intel, you start actually evolving your outbound sales. Okay, so now we know what value we provide to what industries, what's our ideal customer profile, what are the personas. So let's go, guys. Let's go, ladies and gentlemen, and reach out to them in every single way possible. If it's possible to be personalized, awesome. But if we need to personalize a little less so we can reach a bigger audience, we establish, let's say, all the sales process for that, and keep basically tracking those key metrics. So, of course, in the adoption stage, you're signing up companies, you're getting, some new customers, and it's important from this stage. This is one of the things a lot of companies forget to do. And I've had clients that customers of mine that they were already on the later stages of the process, and they've never asked their clients, their customers, to provide some metrics like, hey, do you mind providing how is that KPI going? Like how, if you're still saving that amount of time, if you're saving more time, or if there's anything else that you notice that our software helped you with, can I get a number for you? They are usually they do with no problem, unless you're dealing with, I don't know, financial institutions with a lot of with the policies very restrict and stuff like that. But usually when you are willing, when you're actually helping people and asking them for their feedback, they usually give the feedback. So try to gather as much of those metrics. And then talking about metrics, you also got to start gathering your sales metrics. because
Mm.
this way you're gonna let's say, adapt your sales process. So it's all about testing out, because on the previous stage, it was about the sales experimentation because you didn't know um, exactly if the messaging was good or not. This one, you already have, a solid message and you're discovering other messages. But now you got to pay attention to metrics because sometimes what you thought it would be the best persona, they're not bringing any business. What you thought it would be the industry that would bring more business, it's not the number one, it's number two. Number one is another one. So start tracking metrics and so you can, evolve the process. This adoption is all about metrics, metrics, metrics. So you improve the process, and yeah, it might be different what you thought first.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And those metrics, those are going to continue into the next stage too. But as you're talking about it, really, I imagine there's a lot of kind of running sales experiments in there too, and
Yes.
that's why those metrics, because you don't want to just go like, oh, that call felt really good, but it's like, no, actually, like what what actions led to what outcomes. But you're kind of running these little like, okay, like let's, you talked about earlier in the early stages of like, hey, where are your ideal clients? And so maybe at this adoption stage, it's like, hey, in an outbound way, we're going to go to an industry specific uh, conference, and we're going to go meet people, and we're going to have our discovery calls in person and do our demos in person. And then you come back and you go, okay, was like, how much did that cost us in time and money and
Exactly.
attention? And what did we get out of it? And you're kind of running, you're like, oh, hey, that's a really good outcome. Let's take that experiment and turn that into a big piece of our pipeline. Or you might go, well, that was a lot for a little. Those were the wrong people, or people don't, the decision, you have the decision makers at the conference, but not the users. So it doesn't, or maybe vice versa, it's kind of evaluating these little experiments, I imagine, especially in this adoption stage, to really see,
Yep.
hey, what are the sales levers that we want to pull? Because that is going to look different depending on your SaaS product that you have. Because, whether you're doing a big enterprise thing or you're doing something that's more targeted, you're going to have really different offerings, and you're going to have different audiences. And so that sales process, and that's, I know that, Lucas, that's part of the expertise that you bring in with your services, is you help people go, here are all the ways you could sell,
Yeah.
B2B SaaS, but it's like, well, which ones make sense for you and your ideal client and your product? And you're helping them triage some of that too. So I like that a lot. The looking at patterns too that you're seeing from that metrics. You don't get to see the patterns unless you have the metrics, And so I think that was a good call out. Well, I just want to say thank you for spending this time, and really blessing our community with your expertise. And I'm glad you're with us on the platform, so people can come and find you if they want more, and really get to leverage your expertise. So I appreciate it.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to doing more of these type of things together in the future.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Also, we passed the time quite a bit.
Yep.
Appreciate the conversation, and thank you as well for being a great host and for making my messages a little concise, a little more concise. Thank you very much.
No, I love it. That's awesome.